Hi, welcome to Chris Cook for YouTube. Today I'm going to be doing pork steaks. Now for those of you that are not familiar with pork steaks is a poor man's pork chop, so to speak. But it comes long like this. And what I normally do is exactly what I'm going to do today. I make 2 pieces of meat out of this. So all I do is just cut it in half. And you want to go around that bone. I'll show it to you once I get this cut. Okay, there is a bone right here and a little gristle right there. So you just want to cut it around it. So when you're cutting this, see how big that is? That's a pretty big piece of meat. So when you're cutting this, just make sure that you don't hit your bone and just cut around. So I just took 2 pieces of meat and I've turned it into 4 pieces of meat, and they're relatively very cheap in the store. So this is something that you can fix and you can still stay in your low budget when you're preparing this. Now I'm going to be smothering this in gravy and onions because that's the way I like to fix this, and this is part of my evening or my dinner meal. So let's get started with the ingredients that you're going to need. Of course, you're going to need the pork steaks, and these were like 4 for $8. So I've turned this really into 8 pieces of meat. So you got your pork steaks. You're going to need paprika, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and you're going to need some onions because we're going to saute these up and we're going to put them in the gravy. Now we are going to coat this with a little bit of flour, so you will need that and a little bit of cooking oil. And I'm also going to add some onion soup mix. You know, I make my own, so this is onion soup mix, and I'm going to add this to my gravy. But I'll just show you how to do that. The only ingredients that you really need in order to make your pork steaks is just something to season it with. Today I'm going to use the paprika, garlic powder, or granulated garlic, the salt, and the pepper. That's all you're going to need. If you're going to make some gravy, then you're just going to add the onions and add some kind of flour, water, and you'll be done with it. So I'm going to go away, get these all washed up, get my onions cut up, and I'll meet you at the stove. Be right back. Okay, now I'm at the stove, and I'm using, this is used cooking oil. You see, and this is what we're going to be frying the pork steaks in. Now, you don't have to worry about this having a pretty color brown on it like you were just going to serve it if you were frying it up, and that's it. You're not going to put gravy on it. Because we're putting gravy on it, the only thing we want to do is just get a crust on it, because we want these pork steaks to be tender, and the way to get them tender when you're cooking them in gravy is to allow them to cook in the gravy. Now, I've put my seasonings on these pork steaks, and of course you can see that I've added some flour to it. So I'm just going to fry these up, and then once I get them all fried up, then I'll bring you back and I'll show you exactly how to put them in the gravy and then cook them. But before I let you go, I want to show you over here. I'm going to make biscuits with my dinner meal. So I've browned some butter. I have my oven set on 375, and what you want to do with your biscuits is you want to put them in your pan tight. Why do you want to put them in your pan real tight? Because if you put them in your pan tight, they can't go out like they be flat biscuits. They won't spread out to be flat. They'll rise up high. So you'll get a higher rise out of your biscuits if they're tight, because there's no place for them to go except for up. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. I said I'd bring you back real quick and just show you how to do this in case you're making biscuits and you want them high and fluffy with your meal. Okay, now this is a 10-inch, this is one of my 10-inch cake pans that I'm using actually. And what I'm going to do with that is I put one in. Now you can see the one pan of biscuits. See how much room I got? So now I'm going to tighten it up. So what I'm doing is I'm actually, see how I'm squeezing them up together just to get them in that pan so that they'll be a little bit tighter. And I always put butter on my biscuits before I put them in the oven. Now that's not necessary for you to do, but I do it because they just taste so much better to me. So we're going to cook these at 375 degrees in the oven for roughly about 15 minutes. Pretty much no longer than that. Okay. Now, you see how tight I have those biscuits in the pan? I'm going to get one more in here. I'll go around and I got just getting some butter off to make certain that I have a little bit of butter on that biscuit as well. Now I have them all in the pan, and I'm going to put these in my oven, 375 degrees, 15 minutes. I'll bring you back and show you what that looks like. And now what I'm going to do is to continue to fry up my pork steaks. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and make my gravy water. And that's real simple. I'm going to saute up my onions. Here I have a little bit of water sitting here. And I got some flour that I use in order to coat my pork steaks with. So I'm going to take some of this, and I'm doing roughly about 2 tablespoons full. And I'm eyeballing it because I've been doing this for so long until I know just about what to put in for 2 tablespoons full. And this is like a half of a cup of water. Now, the reason why I make this first is because I don't want lumps in this flour. I want this flour to go ahead and dissolve. And the way you get it to dissolve is by allowing that flour to sit in that water. Now, one thing I do when I'm making my gravy is I always add a little bit of carnation milk. Why do I do that? Because it smooths it out and it makes it more creamy. And this is a really good way to make gravy. You can use regular milk, but if you have carnation milk, it is oh so better. So I'm going to sit this to the side until my pork steaks fry up. Once my pork steaks get all fried up, then I'm going to bring you back and we're going to put this gravy together. But before you leave, I'll just look. See, that's not golden brown enough. See how it is? I want it to be more browner than that. So I'm just going to put this back in, and I'll bring it back when I get ready to turn it. And if you listen to the sound, it's a medium range. That's normally what you would fry on, is a medium range. So I'm going to leave it like that, and I'll bring it back. Okay, now I'm going to flip these over. This should be brown enough. Now I'm just browning this to get a crust on it. I'm not browning it so that it'll just cook all the way through, because it's going to do that once it's in the gravy. But this is like, this is all of the crust that you actually need on these pork steaks. I'm going to cook them all up before I bring you back to saute the onions. But I just wanted to show you what it looks like once you flip it over to the other side. Now you can get them a little bit browner, or you can leave it that color. It really doesn't matter, because this is not done. I want you to fully understand, this is not done. This is just partially cooked, so we can go ahead and make the gravy, and the gravy is what's going to get this done. Once we put it in the gravy and we allow this to simmer for a while, probably about 30 minutes, when we get through, this should be tender enough for me to cut it with a fork. So I'll show you exactly what that looks like once I bring you back. So I'm going to go ahead and cook these up, and I'll be right back when I get done with it. Be right back. Okay, I'm down to the last of it, but I want to show you these biscuits because they're ready. Look at that. Look at that. Look at how high they rose up. That's the way you want your biscuits to look. And immediately when you take your biscuits out, now you could have got yours a little bit darker. I don't want mine any darker. But immediately, but you see how high they rose? The reason why they rose that high is because I packed them tight inside of the container. And once you pack them tight, they have nowhere to go but up. So those look really good. So I'm going to sit them on the back of the stove. I always put a little butter on the top of mine because I don't want my top to be hard and crusty. So I put a little bit of butter on them. So I'm going to sit this on the back of my stove. And I'm going to go ahead and take out my pork steaks. Now remember what I told you. These pork steaks are not done. And you might say, why did I use old cooking oil? I used old cooking oil because that's old chicken grease. And the best thing you can do when you're making gravy is to have some type of a chicken flavor over in the gravy. Any type of a chicken flavor. It's going to make it good. I don't care if you are cooking pork chops or chicken or whatever it is. Now, I want you to look at this oil. See, that's not a lot of grease. So, and you can see all of the residue down in the bottom. So what I'm going to do, I want to reach past and get a spoon. I'm not going to take this out. Okay? I'm going to leave all of that in, and I'm going to go ahead and saute up my onions. Now, you don't have to use as many onions as I did. My family loves onions, so I'm using a little more. And I'm just going to saute these up a little bit. And then I'm going to take them out of the pan, and I'm going to make the gravy. So I'm going to go away just until these saute up a little bit. Once they saute up, then I'll bring you back, and we'll make the gravy. Now, remember, the pork steaks are not done. The only thing I wanted to do is to cook them and get a crust on them, and you can see there's a real nice crust on them. And then I'm using all of the granules that was left. That's going to help to color my gravy and to make my gravy oh so good. Now I'll add just a little bit of salt and pepper to my onions, and that'll be it. I'll bring it back once I saute these up. I'm not going to cook these all the way. I'm just going to saute them up a little bit, and then they'll cook when the pork steaks cook inside of the gravy. Be right back. Okay, now I want you to see I don't have a lot of oil in there. See, that's a limited amount of oil, and I did leave some of the onions over in there, and that's fine. And my stove is on a medium heat. I just turned it back on a medium heat because I wanted to saute up my onions, and I didn't saute the onions up until they were fully cooked. So you still have a lot of the crunch in it, but you won't. Now I'm going to go ahead. This is my flour water. Now that's the flour water that I made with the flour, the carnation milk, and the water. And all you want to do is just cook that flour real fast, which is exactly what I did. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to water this down. I'm going to add about 3 cups of water to it, but don't worry because it's looking watery. Now you see how it looks now, okay? Now I'm just going to add 3 cups of water. That's about 3. And I'm going to stir this in. I'll add a little bit more. And just because it looks water, it looks watery, it's going to cook down these pork chops. Now all of the flour that I put in here, plus the flour that's on the pork chops, all of that flour is going to help to make my gravy. So I'm going to put my pork chops, or my pork steaks, I'm sorry, and see how big these pork steaks are. That's why you cut them in half, because you got enough. You should have enough to feed your whole family. See, these are some big pieces, and you saw me when I cut them in half. So I'm going to put that back into the gravy. And next time you see these pork steaks, trust me, they will be super tender. I'm going to add just a little bit of the onions. That looks good already. I'm going to add just a little bit more water. Put the rest of them back in there. I'll go ahead and add the rest of my water. I'm going to allow this to cook for 30 minutes. And I may add just 1 more cup of water as it cooks. If I do, I'll let you know. But the next time you see me with this, it's going to be super tender. Not unless I bring it back if I'm going to add some more water. But you want all of those granules, all of your onion. You want all of that over in there. Okay? Now I'm going to take and put the top on this. And I'm going to let this simmer on low for about 30 minutes. There you go. And I'll bring you back. But take one more glance at these biscuits. See how good that came out? Alrighty, I'll bring you back, and at that time I'll dish up a plate. Be right back. Okay, now I'm back, and this should be ready. So I'm just going to take the top off and show you what it looks like. They are done. Look at how good that gravy looks. And those pork steaks look so good. And they should really, really be tender. So I'm going to go ahead and dish up a plate. Today I made green beans. I made green peas, mashed potatoes, the biscuits, and of course I did the pork steaks and gravy. So I'm going to go ahead, dish you up a plate, just show you what this looks like. This looks oh so good. I mean, this really looks good. And you can tell when, let me try to clean up this plate just a little bit. Okay. Now you can tell when your meat is really tender and your meat is really good. Look at that. Look at that. When you can cut that meat with that fork, that means that you really have some good meat. Now we're going to go ahead and take 2 of these biscuits. And I'm using my fork. Y'all have to excuse me with the gravy on it. But it's okay. And we're going to look at those biscuits. See how high they came out when you're doing that way? And that's what I wanted to show you. Let's see if I can put it back here. There you go. 2 of those biscuits. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of this gravy with these, look at it. See how it coats that spoon? That is some good gravy filled with onions. I'm going to put a little bit over the steak. Well, pork steaks. And I'm going to put a little bit over my mashed potatoes. Let me cover this pot back up. Now, nobody can tell me that that's not a meal fit for a king. Who wouldn't want to come home to that? You have mashed potatoes and gravy with green peas, those stacked high biscuits, and you got pork steaks that's just smothered in gravy. Just want to do something that's a little bit different. Know that that's really a good meal to come home to. I'm truly going to enjoy this one. And as always, thank you for watching. Chris Cook for you too. Bye.